The approach to Reagan-Washington National Airport, especially from the north, is one of the trickiest for pilots to navigate due to the complex airspace. There's the White House, restricted airspace there, the Washington Monument, a bend in the Potomac River, and then the Pentagon off to the right. And now perhaps another complication. President Trump's proposed 250-foot tall Triumphal Arch. Sunlen Serfati reports.
This airspace above me is among the most complex for planes taking off and landing.
And President Trump is about to make it even more complicated with this, a 250-foot triumphal arch in the middle of this very congested airspace, less than 2 miles from the final approach of Washington's Reagan National Airport.
The size and location is sparking concern in the aviation community. Ever since 9/11, commercial airspace is restricted, so planes have to use this flight path to come in from the north. Pilots tell us this is already one of the most difficult landings in the country.
It's challenging, especially that last turn. Now, the arch is going to be something we come across near the end of this arrival when we're already at low altitude.
Ben Berman, a former airline pilot, took us into a simulator to show us exactly what pilots see when they make this landing.
So right now we're flying by the arch.
So you're talking about only 300 of clearance between you and the top of the arch?
Yeah, approximately. So
How
right
does that
now,
make you feel?
If it's a clear visual day, I feel good. But if I was flying that RNAV approach to 19, I could be doing this in the clouds. You can't go to the left because there's the restricted airspace of downtown Washington and all the Capitol and White House and everything. And then you can't go to the right because, well, there may be an arch there. So, and then at the very last bit, make about a 30-degree right turn to line up with the runway. And all has to be judged, by eye.
I am standing where the arch will ultimately go. I'm nearly 6 feet tall. You can see how tall the arch would be. The flight path is just 350 feet above the highest point of the arch.
While that seems like a small distance, experts say it's enough space because the horizontal clearance is so wide, between 1,400 to 2,000 feet. Even so, for years, pilots have complained about landing at runway 19, the one that is closest to the arch. According to government reports, pilots have said there is not enough room to make the descent, flying too low in the area, receiving caution obstacle alerts from their warning systems, and struggling to avoid flying into the prohibited airspace. The FAA says the arch is safe, saying it would have no significant adverse effect, but called for red lights to be added to the arch to help pilots navigate around it.
And so, Sunlen, tell us, where do things stand right now, tonight, in terms of whether this arch actually gets built?
Well, it's pretty close, John. One of 2 key federal commissions that needs to review the arch will be taking it up in September at their September 3rd meeting. Now, it has to go through these 2 key committees. One has already passed it through, so we're ultimately just waiting on the second one, the National Capital Planning Commission. And a reminder, these are commissions that the president fired the previous members, replaced with his hand-selected loyalists. So it's likely that will get passed when they take it up for final vote. But it does still face this lawsuit, a lawsuit from Vietnam veterans groups, also from historians, preservationists who argue about the location of the arch so close to Arlington National Cemetery. It's making its way through the courts, of course. Now, when and if the arch is approved, if it clears the legal hurdles, the Department of Interior, John, they have been very clear that they are going to work very quickly, very fiercely. They have already laid out a very aggressive timeline. The plan will be to work 20 hours a day, 2 shifts with 10 hours each on those shifts, 7 days a week, 20-hour work days year round to get this done before the president leaves office. John?
Fascinating piece. Sunlen, kudos to the graphics team, and thank you very much.
CNN has learned that the Trump administration is quietly moving to rewrite historic preservation rules. If passed, the changes would help pave the way for constructing the president's pet projects, such as what you see on your screen, the Triumphal Arch. At least one critic has called these proposed changes really shocking. CNN's Sunlen Srifati joins us now. Sunlen, walk us through these proposed changes and what makes them shocking.
Well, Boris, this is really quite significant. We're talking about regulations that have been in place for over 50 years. To get a little bit in the weeds here, this all involves Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. That is basically mandates agencies to look at the impact of projects on historical properties. So this is in essence what the Trump administration has been running up against and really at the heart of much of the legal challenges over things like the Arch, the reflecting pool, the East Potomac Golf Course, the Kennedy Center, for example. So according to a draft of these changes that we obtained, it's numerous, but pulling out just two. One, currently the rules state that if the project is going to create adverse effects, the agency in charge is required to consider alternatives, and this is their language, to avoid, minimize, or mitigate adverse effects. But the new changes, slight word change, but a significant difference. It says now that the change of the language goes to reasonable mitigation measures. So it really takes a little bit of the onus on the people who are calling for this property to address the adverse effects. Also, it does not mandate, it just suggests a public comment period. But critics really are all over this. Preservationists, historians, they tell me that this gives the Trump administration much more leeway here to get their projects through. Rebecca Miller, the executive director of the DC Preservation League, tells me, quote, moving forward, it would give them, as in the administration, free rein to do whatever they wanted to do. It's not even a small tweak. It's a complete gutting of the Section 106 process. Now, there will be a vote later this week at the agency that's in charge of this, Boris. Then it would potentially go over to OMB. So a little more steps have to happen, but potentially in the next few months, we could see these regulations updated. It could mean an easier path for some of President Trump's projects.
It's notable that the public comment period would only be suggested in part because some of what we've seen in public pushback to some of these projects has been really notable, right?
That's right. And in every one of these steps, they have a public comment period. It's mandated that the commissioners bring it up.
Right.
99.9% likely that there has been negative, and they've had to make note of it. It will basically fast track it, no longer mandate that significant.
Sunlen Srifati, we'll keep an eye on the story. Thank you so much for that reporting.
President Trump is building a new helipad on the South Lawn. His reason, well, it will save the grass that's currently being scorched by heat from the more powerful helicopter he's decided to use. CNN's Sunlen Srifati explains.
More or less.
It is President Trump's latest stylistic stamp on the White House.
We're building a helipad, beautiful helipad.
Building a permanent helipad on the South Lawn for Marine One to land and take off.
And other presidents wouldn't do that because they think it's not good to make a change to luxury, but you got to do it.
As construction crews have started working, details have emerged. Trump ordering up a pad that will be 100 feet in diameter, made out of black granite, and features the presidential seal.
The President of the United States of America.
The work starting after June's UFC match that tore up the South Lawn, causing $700,000 in damage when the octagon known as the Claw was built on the South Lawn. For years, Marine One has landed on temporary circular discs, put out manually before the helicopter lands.
For 50 years, we've been landing helicopters on grass. The grass is wet, soggy. The helicopters sometimes miss their little mark.
The White House is arguing that this change is not just about style, but also necessity, needed to protect the grass on the South Lawn from the exhaust fumes from the more powerful upgraded Marine One. The high-velocity heat from the new VH-92A Patriot helicopter that Trump has opted to use has burned the grass and torn up the sod of the historic lawn.
They landed the helicopter and half of the grass was sitting in front of the Oval Office front door. The rest of it was scattered all over because of the power. It's tremendous.
The helipad will be paid for by Sikorsky, a Lockheed Martin subsidy that builds the helicopters and bills this model as one capable of fulfilling a no-fail mission supporting the commander-in-chief around the world. The president says it will cost between $5 and $6 million. Just like other work Trump has ordered to the White House campus, this is also being done without Congress and without two federal commissions that typically would have a say. A White House official telling CNN they believe upgrades to the White House grounds, such as the helipad installation, do not require commission reviews.
And past presidents have used this more powerful version of Marine One in the past, but never to take off from the South Lawn. For instance, former President Joe Biden, he would opt to use the older version of Marine One, potentially saving the grass a bit. A White House official tells me they expect that this construction will be completed by mid-September. But in the meantime, while the work continues, the president will need to take off from this area behind me, the ellipse. That, though, will necessitate him getting into the motorcade when he departs the White House and going just a quarter of a mile.